So thank you so very much for joining us. My name is Theophilus van Rensburg-Linster. I'm sitting in Stockholm, some 10,500 kilometers away from a very good friend of mine, Daniel Motshwane, who will join us this evening for a second part of introducing the incredible work he's doing, largely because he's an incredible human being. And so we'll be spending some time with Daniel, listening a little bit more about what he does. This particular channel is dedicated to promoting vocational training in agriculture in South Africa, mainly in rural settings where we think access to information, knowledge, and opportunities to develop skills within agriculture could be a game changer for young people. Learning Academy Worldwide is a non-profit organization in South Africa that spearheads a vocational training in agriculture project in South Africa. And that particular project runs in 3 locations. We'll explain a little bit more about that. But that's what this broadcast is about, mainly promoting that incredible work and getting folks in like Daniel to show us just in what other wonderful things are happening right on our doorstep. And as I mentioned, the music that you're hearing in the background is the music of Andre de Lang. And one of the things that I've always appreciated about him is that he not only sings, he sings with a heart. He's a South African-born Swede whose music we have been encouraged by, been challenged by. So let's listen again to Andre singing One in a Million. So that's what you are. That's what you are, Daniel. Yes, that was Andre, along with the One in a Million. A friend of mine earlier today said, the musicians and poets have probably been of the insightful voices in our world today. And so that's why we appreciate Andre's music so much. And this evening, we have a special guest, and the second time that he's on, I'm going to just let him in here. Daniel, can you hear me, sir?
Yes, Theo, I can hear you.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Folks can hear you too, but I'm going to get them to see you now. Hearing you is one thing, but seeing you, there you are. That's Daniel Motshwane. Daniel, where are you at the moment?
Thank you, Theo, and thank you to all the listeners in. I'm currently now, as we speak, I'm in Zeerust, in the Northwest
Mm,
Province, just about 100 kilometers to Botswana. Yeah, the
okay.
last time we were speaking, I was visiting one of our associates in Lichtenberg,
Yes,
and now, and now I'm in my hometown in Zeerust.
I remember that. Yeah. We had a meaningful time
Yeah.
last week, Daniel. What are the memories for you from last week?
Yeah, no, the memories was, me sitting outside, at that farm, birds singing around, and, very nice moonlight.
Yes.
That was something that was really memorable for me. Yeah,
Yes.
it was just a beautiful setup that I was there at, because we planning to set up some different programs there with Kamini and the lady there, Mariana,
Mm,
on that beautiful property. Yeah. So
yes.
collaboration for us really, since the first time we met, we also met with Kamini, and yeah, so we continuing that business relationship that
That's
we
fantastic.
established.
It's a
Yes.
it's a key word, right, Daniel? The whole idea, the notion of collaborating. We just you cannot do the kind of things that we, especially when we talk not only about upliftment, but specific projects that has to do with providing food for everyone. This is not something we do on
Yeah.
our own. The collaboration is crucial. Would you say?
Mm. Yeah, no, definitely. It is crucial because we, we the need is quite huge in
Mm,
terms of food security, and us, coming together like that, and bringing our expertise, our resources, and together. I think it's just the way to go for us to reach, the goals that we want to reach. I mean, we are talking about UNSDG 2030, which is, I always say, it's just week after next. It's very close. 2030 is just around the corner.
mm.
And when you look at 17 SDGs, I mean, how far are we, to reach that? But once we come together, in each and every sector, I believe we can reach some kind of a milestone.
You're absolutely right. If you've just joined us, you're listening to the voice of Daniel Motshwane sitting in the northwest province, as he mentioned, some 100 and some kilometers away from the Botswana border. So he is an exciting individual that has a passion for making a difference in other people's lives. We are talking in the agriculture space here a lot more specifically. Daniel will relate just now, which is the second episode of a time that we have agreed that we'll spend together because we think that we need to hear and we need to communicate to others what Daniel does. I think we'll be surprised and sometimes maybe overly negative we are when we think about things that are not happening. And so, what we try to do with these broadcasts is to bring folks in so they can tell their stories in order for us to know. And knowing makes a difference. Even folks who consider themselves very well educated do not know. One of those friends, you will not mind me saying this, did not know what you were busy with, Daniel, when we spoke to Terry last time. Do you remember some of the questions he had that
So
were,
yes,
yeah,
he had tons of questions, yeah, and
yes,
you could see the the ignite, of of mushroom farming, and a lot of questions, that has made him to see that this is something I have not really taken cognizance of,
Yeah,
but seems quite interesting. Yeah,
absolutely. As I mentioned, my name is
yeah.
Theophilus van Rensburg Linster, and I'm sitting here in Stockholm, and I'm actually heading down to South Africa tomorrow evening, and I'll spend some time working with our the partners and also with students and teachers in vocational training in agriculture. My deep concern
Correct.
is for supporting and strengthening men like Daniel and other leaders in the space of especially the training side of vocational training in agriculture. And we're trying to build a new model of vocational training in agriculture. And I would like to just share a little bit about that, Daniel, before I let you in, just so I can, inform the public also a little bit here about what it is that we are doing. Um, so let me just show you a little bit here about Learning Academy Worldwide. Who is Learning Academy Worldwide? Well, it's a non-profit company. It's registered in South Africa. And what it does is its main aim is to um, strengthen the knowledge levels and the skills levels of young people in rural settings, largely, to enable them to go into the workplace, consider studying further, or as a third option, maybe start their own business. We think at Learning Academy Worldwide that we are actually de-risking investment in agricultural innovation. There's a great deal of innovation that's happening in the agriculture space, especially in agricultural technology. But all of this
Mm,
innovation does expect that there is a skillful and knowledgeable and a skillful workforce that has the capacity to fix things that go wrong, come up with new solutions,
mm.
maintain creative existing systems. Is that your sense too, Daniel? What we're seeing here from at Learning Academy Worldwide, that in a way, what you and I do, as soon as we train someone, soon as we create an opportunity, that we actually de-risk someone's investment in agriculture.
Mm.
It,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, absolutely. Yeah, Theo. Yeah, no, absolutely. You spot on there, because I believe everything starts with self-capacitating and learning,
Mm,
and Learning Academy Worldwide. I believe it's a vehicle that we need,
mm,
even as entrepreneurs, as innovators. We need a platform like this, for us to be able to be heard and to because sometimes you find, like here, we've got a lot of support, from government and everything, and all other different public and private, institutions.
mm,
But information is there, it's out there, even in government. But then the challenge is for it to reach the intended masses. Like you're talking about the rural communities, it's always a challenge
yeah.
for rural communities to be reached with a lot of this information that is out there. We receive so much information on daily basis,
Mm.
but it does not the masses which are in the rural areas.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and that's why that is an emphasis, and this whole notion of capacity building. Now, on that issue of training and giving capacity, I've got a slide up here just showing the public that the solution, or let me put it this way, the problems that we wanted to address were three basic difficulties that we see with current vocational training models. The one is a lot of the training sometimes is incoherent. The things that are put together, they do not sort of honor both the grand different styles of learning and teaching, and they do have limitations in connecting the practical and the theory consistently, not just getting students to sit in benches. But it's you almost have to have a 4 out of 5 days of practice, and just spend one day when you have to really, if you have to sit down. So that's one of the problems we saw. There were just too many solutions provided in the education training space that had a focus on sitting down in the benches. Is that something that you notice as well, Daniel?
Absolutely, yes, Theo. That's something that I've noticed, and it's something that we need. We need new ways of doing things, and a new approach, or a way that people will relate, because
Mm,
in most cases, again, it then becomes again the language barrier. At sometimes you find people that really doesn't understand the lingua franca, and then where we need to do things in a way that people understand what you're doing. And the best way to teach someone anything is to show them,
mm,
practically, to say, okay, this is how you take this and put this here, and then this is how this product is going to come out eventually to this, end valuable product. So
absolutely.
it's a way that I think we need to look into, on how do we really transfer skills. How do we transfer skills? How do we make someone to come into a learning environment and live there with a practical understanding and knowledge of going to implement what they have been taught.
Right. And that's a very, very valid point. And I think that this is the combination of the practical and the theory is absolutely crucial. Now we all know that, but it's just not happening at a large scale enough to really make an impact. So that was a one problem we saw. Daniel, the other problem that we saw that we wanted to address was the fact that the local community is often distanced from the learning organization. Kids
Mhm.
from Harlem out in the countryside, or any other kids from Lupeng, which is a town in the northern Cape, very close actually to the northwest province. Those youngsters, if
Mm.
they want to study agriculture, they have to go to the big city. And we think
Mm.
that's a problem. In the community where you live, you end up forgetting. Well, if you have to go study elsewhere, you have to go live elsewhere. You have to pay rent elsewhere. You are now lost to your community. And I've spoken to so many folks, and I have a special relationship with a chief in the northwest province,
Mm.
chief. Hosi Mohakolodi
Yeah,
Masibi. I mentioned this to you
yeah,
last time,
Daniel,
probably.
yeah.
And he was
Mm.
saying there's such a lot of opportunities in the village, but the young people have left the village. And so we saw this as a problem because we wanted to know, why is it that since there's so many things that grow locally, you can learn agriculture right in your community. And I'm not so sure if
Mm.
you've experienced that as well as a difficulty, Daniel.
Yeah, it is a problem that persists
Mm,
everywhere, and not only in South Africa, but also in other countries as well.
sure.
And I think then it has opened that gap that needs to be closed, because we live the areas where we've got a lot of space, a lot of land. That's why we've got a lot of arable land here, even northwest, has got, and all other these provinces. But
Mm,
then we see our people and our kids, leaving that space, because we don't create that environment for people, for our children to enjoy that, those rural areas where they are. There's no longer this thing of social cohesion, where we sometimes will come together and sit under a tree and say, what can be done, what are the problems, what are the solutions I mean, what are the opportunities around us? Because uh, a person who has traveled like myself, I'll go, for example, to Angola,
Mm.
and when I arrive, I'll just say, guys, are you aware how much money are you throwing away? You look at a certain crop, for example, and see how these people just see it as nothing. But then people then will go there, buy that crop, bring it here. When I show them the prices of a specific crop, maybe that I identified there, they were shocked to say, really? And I said yes. So it's a thing of saying, the we don't open our eyes, but there's maybe people who, like you said initially, on the second chat, that there's no opportunities that we bring into our rural communities,
Mm.
and the rural people, the people in rural communities. There's no one that is really,
Mm.
to go down to them to say, um, this is what we can do. So it's a challenge that really, but I believe um, uh, there's a remnant of God's people that is coming together to
Wow.
try to change, yeah, that narrative,
Mm.
where people are saying, this is where we are
Yeah.
and this is what we have. And land is one of the best gifts that God has given us,
Mm.
and everything that we see,
Oh man,
comes from there.
I do
Even ourselves.
yeah, I do so love that expression, Daniel. We are here, and I'm so sorry. It looks like we had a little bit of a sound problem, and we had to fix the sound, and we just managed to fix it. I hope if folks can let us know. Sorry about that. Daniel and myself have been whapping away here, thinking everybody understands and hear what we're saying. Anyway, my name is Theophilus van
Mm,
Rensburg Linster. I am in a conversation with Daniel Motshwane from South Africa. I'm sitting here in Stockholm in Sweden. I'm so sorry that we missed the sound feed early in the conversation. We are back now, and I trust that the sound feed is a little bit better. We've been talking a little bit about what Learning Academy Worldwide does in South Africa to address the knowledge and skills deficits among young people, especially in rural settings. And we've talked about first the problem that some of the curriculum that we put together is too focused on theory and too little practice. And then secondly, that we don't appreciate where we are. Like you said, we are here. I don't have to. I'm not running down uh, higher education solutions. Please do not misunderstand what we are saying here. We're not saying it's the higher education solution or the vocational training or colleges are not needed. They definitely fulfill a role, no doubt about that. What we are saying is we need to creatively find solutions for young people who live where they live for the learning experience to take place. It is so that in the rural communities, you have access to a lot more space than what is the case in the city. And number two, it's very likely that you are in an area that has an agricultural niche, some kind of corner that is very, very particular uh, to that region. And so that, in my sense, can become, or let me put it this way, that experience of what grows locally is lost if we take all these young people elsewhere. There was a third problem we saw in the structure of vocational training in agriculture generally, Daniel, and it has to do with
mm,
how quickly you find a job after you have completed your studies. And so
mm.
it appears that there are still too many young people, despite the fact that they had actually spent time in training, they are unemployed. I'm not so sure what you see on the ground as far as that's concerned, Daniel.
Yeah, it's a universal problem, Theo. It's a problem, and that is actually painful because parents always mm, make means, to take their kids to school.
Yeah.
Governments, like for example here, they they make all means, to support kids, in higher institutions of learning.
Sure.
But then when the kids come back and say, I mean, where are we going to work? And then again, it's a thing of saying, I'm qualified, and then the employer will say, where is your where is your experience?
Yes.
So then it creates a very serious challenge, for someone to say, is it really necessary for me to school, spend 5 years, 7 years? We've got so many doctors that are sitting at home, and I think the other challenge is that also the academia sometimes they don't really look into creating jobs. Most cases, but
Right.
in most cases they want to be employed.
Mm.
And the conversation that I once had with somebody else to say, you go through all these universities, you find tons and tons of research papers, and you ask yourself, if only maybe some of those research papers can be commercialized,
Yeah.
what is going to happen, to even all these kids that does not have employment? It's just going to transform the economy. I mean, in a big way.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I echo that sentiment is exactly what we are seeing. And if you are in this conversation, my name is Theophilus van Rensburg Linster, and I am spending a meaningful time with Daniel Motshwane, always we're talking through this, what we call an alternative model of learning that we think is crucial for us to make a difference, especially for our young people in rural settings. Now, on that point, Daniel, of finding a job, after your training, for me, it reflected that we maybe had this thing, the ups, the wrong way up. In
Mm,
2019, at a conference up in the mountains there, in just outside of George, in the Southern Cape, we had talked to young people about this issue, and we explained these three problems that we saw. Number one, that the curriculum is too theoretical. Number two, that young people are ripped out of their communities to go study elsewhere if they want to have the best education. And number three, that even if you studied, you couldn't get a job right away. And it was clear to us that they understood this, and we talked during that weekend on the idea of learning and earning can go together.
mm,
So
absolutely.
if you not learning and a stipend, and I also want to be careful here, we are not saying that, there are young people, there are students that are so dependent on, they have so many needs within the community. There's no doubt that a little help will actually help. So it's not that what we're talking about, but we wanted to encourage the fact that if you if you are having a practical learning experience within agriculture, it is very likely that you will grow something. And if you grow something from the soil, you immediately are part of the entire value chain. And if you can think a little bit of what happened before that, there were folks that were propagating seed, there were folks that were selling seeds, then the seed finally got to you put it in the soil. You actually did something before that. You maybe prepared the soil and strengthened it with nutrients. And after that, you had planted. And then, even after that, you needed to make sure that the irrigation and additional nutrition, maybe down the line, is required. Once you've started that, if you do that in your community and that is part of your training, you are in the value chain.
Mm,
Would it be fair
mm,
to say, Daniel, that sometimes there's a missed opportunity, we missed the chance right there to let the
mm.
learning be part of the business model? Can we not at the same time teach packaging then? What are your thoughts?
Mm, mm, mm. Theo, I believe that's the way to go, and that's the right thing to do actually,
Hmm.
because then we'll be breaking that chain of how me and you, were raised, and we will be creating an ecosystem that allows freedom, that allows learning, that allows growth,
Right.
that allows empowerment, that allows transformation.
Mm.
As you are coming down this side, I hope we can find time for me to take you to an early childhood development center,
Mm.
um, to just go and see what kids are going through in that space, the type of learning that goes in there,
Mm.
and how these kids are being brought up from the very same education system that we're talking about, of vocational, of kids being exposed. I mean, down in Uganda, there's one organization, there kids, I mean, from 6, 7, 8, 11 years, they learn how to work the soil,
Right.
and then they know how to process what they have harvested from the soil.
Mm.
They learn technology, how to do web development, how to do software engineering at their age. So that's why I was saying that I believe God is bringing His people together, to change this whole thing. And I also see with the TVET colleges here, I believe that's what they want to achieve, with that kind of training,
Mm.
where kids get a hands-on, a training, and also be taught about entrepreneurship at the same time. So I believe we are going to see in the few years to come, things starting to change, and learning going hand in hand with earning, and doesn't matter from which age, because these kids, I mean, as we were talking to them, presenting to us during the week,
Mm.
one of them said parents wake up in the morning, thinking about money. During the day, the whole day they're thinking about money. They go to sleep thinking about money. But here we are now able to learn and make our own money at
Mm.
our own age. So I believe there will be a change, in the world as we go along.
Yeah, that is very, very encouraging because I think it points to the fact that there are folks that are doing wonderful things. They're coming up with great solutions and they are teaching some of these principles rather early in a person's life. That is very, very helpful. Now, I
Yeah.
think that these problems that we've identified here, and I've got it back on the screen here, a broken curriculum, a broken community, and a broken
Mm,
chain or conduit to the world of work, that's exactly what we are trying to address. And so
mm,
in 2019, we went into that community, Daniel, and we basically wanted to well, we invited young people to come and explore and think with us through, and we had about 20 odd young people in 2019 that joined us on this camp, and as a consequence we were able to expose them to an opportunity in this space. And so right
mm.
now this is where we are, and I've got a map up. I just need to just adjust the size here. So right now we have a good number of students that are in three different venues or spaces in South Africa. One in the well, two in the Southern Cape and one in the Northern Cape. And these opportunities now. Um, just bring this up here. I'm just trying to fix this a little bit. This slide is not so good. There we go. So we
Yeah,
have
that's why I can't
we have
see
we have
what you're projecting, but
yeah. So we have one in George, and we have one just outside of George, closer to the Eastern Cape border, a place called Harlem. And then there is a small one rather recently. This is maybe a year, just less than probably a year old, in Concordia. There we have about 16 students and two teachers. Um, and so um, it is possible to get young people excited about agriculture and let them see a career
mm,
um, for themselves in the community. Don't have to take them outside of the community to see that. And Daniel, in a way, you've
mm,
done that as well. That's really what we have been doing as Learning Academy worldwide. We have some exciting new developments that have happened over time. One of the things that have happened is that we were spotted by the European Union, and the European Union had a project called Seed for Africa, and their goal
mm,
was to support and strengthen the quality of teachers of vocational training in agriculture. And we applied for that
mm,
grant, um, and we were successful. So, together with two other African countries, Benin and Kenya, we were selected
mm,
to provide this training, and we in the final year of that project, and we're very honored and that we were had this opportunity. Our teachers have managed to travel for job shadowing opportunities both in Spain, well, actually, not just Spain, say both, but Spain, Italy, and in Belgium. And our teachers have been able to see a variety of experiences that strengthen their knowledge of the space. They were able to see some new solutions within agriculture. Most importantly, they were able to expand their own network of people that know that, of whom are now their friends and colleagues in the world, and not only come back to South Africa with good practices, but they've also shared good practices with folks from the north, so to speak. That's very valuable.
mm.
And Daniel, you can appreciate the benefit that training, that traveling and connecting bring to one's learning experience, right?
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah, yeah,
You've traveled quite a
absolutely.
lot, and you've been around the world, and you've traveled in South Africa and on the continent, and that
Mm.
means a lot for a teacher, or or for any person in terms of their experience that they have.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Because, even when you look at maybe some of the information that I said, my travel to Angola where we had kids, around us and,
Mm.
introducing them to mushroom farming, through jazz, partnered with this guy who's a great jazz musician
Wow.
and teaching kids, the STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics,
Mm.
through music and then cultural events that are brought in, and also it's a process, it's in my business model, I call it agritourism, because then we bring in this mushroom farming and awareness, and then
Mm.
bring other elements of sports science, and music, and
Yes.
it adds, and so it becomes quite interesting, because as much as we want to have kids interested in agriculture, in farming, we need to adopt to their lifestyle,
Right.
and also come up with programs that is why even now, artificial intelligence is also growing quite big, things around
Oh yes.
blockchain, in farming, fintech, it's things that are really growing and that are making kids to be excited, to come into the agricultural sector and to learn about farming and food security, and all of that. And yeah, I believe it's a way to go.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it does show that, once you've experienced another a culture, connect with somebody else, you learn these new technologies, and it does broaden your understanding of where the needs are. And sometimes you think you've seen a need, but you listen or you connect with somebody else that looks at that a little bit differently, and they can teach you something. And so there is a great deal
Mm,
of value of having a practical approach. Get out. I'm just reading here from Matthias Mvula, who's listening to us live from Zambia, and he was saying it's a
from
brilliant
Zambia guy,
topic.
from Moringa guy.
Yeah, he says, I think he says the old curriculums were subject to too much theory and had less to do with hands on. And he says, I have been leading agriculture training, which are hands on, and the return capacity has been tremendous. And we see the
mm,
readiness that these students can immediately dive into implementing at entrepreneurship level, which he says is a big plus. That's quite insightful, and
yeah,
I think that it points at the fact that this need that we see is a real one, that we are sensitivity to number one, a curriculum that is practical, sensitivity to not rip young people away from their communities, and sensitivity to
mm,
the business side of it. If you're going to be in the value chain in agriculture, then there is
mm,
potential for you to receive a reward for your effort. And why should we not be teaching that all the time in our rural
mm,
settings? It would be fantastic to
mm,
do. So,
mm.
thank you so very much, Matthias, for sharing that with us. That was very, very useful. Daniel, I need to hear a little bit from you now, and I'm going to bring up your slides here because we want to talk a little bit about Africa Rising here as well, and specifically in the space of um, mushroom growing, and I know we've learned a little bit from it last time, but
Mm.
let's delve in. And I'm sorry that we need to sort of work in such a way today that we have both. I have the slides this side, and you're going to need to tell me when to flip to the side slides. So what I do have, Daniel, I now have your first slide up on the screen. Um,
Mm.
and I am going to let you go ahead. So that's just the first slide, Daniel, that sort of introduces the actual slide presentation. Do you want me to move on to the next slide?
Yeah, we can move on to the next slide so that I just because I don't see what you're projecting on
Yeah.
your
So
side,
I'm
ne?
yeah.
From us.
The next
Yeah,
one is problem
yeah,
statement and solution. I'm on that
yeah,
slide. Yeah.
yeah. I think yeah, maybe I can talk to that slide a little bit,
Sure.
which is something that is actually is has driven me,
Mm,
to do what I do. Ne? Because in it's in every business, you need to look okay. Business is about solving problems, and we need to identify what the problems are. And when I looked into this whole business that I'm doing or project that I'm doing, it was not there immediately, but as I get to understand the whole business and looking at all the streams of income that is there within the whole business. Earlier on, you did talk about the value chain. So what I identified here is the inequality gaps that we see in our society, and I think we touched that in a different way, and then which leads to emotional, mental, physical, psychological, environmental, financial, or economical ills,
right.
including even the and then which also then leads to most of our Africans, accepting poverty as a way of life. So this is something that I looked at deeply and to say it looks like the challenges that we have it's based within this inequality gaps. And this problem statement is aligning to UN SDG number 5, which talks about gender equality. Because I believe if we can close this, as I'm saying here with my solution to say we're offering this mushroom training, capacity building, farming and processing to industrialize communities through mushroom farming, and then bridging these inequality gaps, and then creating, because we want to create that balance to mitigate all these social ills, and also to create that social cohesion that I was talking about that we don't see, in our communities. So I believe, Theo, this is what is driving me, and to want to see a balance, in gender, because there's a lot of abuse that we see, there's a lot of all of these social ills that I've mentioned there
Mm,
that can be created by industrialization, not only in mushroom farming, but if we can start industrializing communities,
mm,
through different projects, through different things, whether it's in agriculture or in mining, but where people can have a stake in what they are doing, where people can have, a share. Because this is what I'm building to say, let us come together as a cluster to
mm.
create this mushroom cluster, and then let's because the fungi industry is valued at the last time I checked was $54.57 trillion.
Oof.
So globally, so you can see that's something that is quite intense. And to say with the fungi, we can really transform as many lives as we can.
Mhm. And I'm moving now to that other slide here, Daniel, where it talks about fresh mushrooms from your controlled environment agriculture practice. Tell us a little bit about what is that?
Okay, so we don't grow mushrooms on the ground, and we create an environment for them to thrive. And this environment has to be controlled. And I believe it's a topic that we had when we were in Balito, talking about urban farming and then control environment agriculture.
Right.
And so with mushrooms, that's also what is happening to say we create an environment for mushroom to. Of course, there are those mushrooms that that just grow on the field without and as we know, some of them are edible, some of them are poisonous, and then in our case now we grow these mushrooms now in a controlled environment agriculture, where then we we monitor everything from our inoculation process, and incubation process up to the fruiting process. So this is where now the mushrooms are ready to be harvested, and then to be taken to use whichever way a person would love to use them.
That's very useful. And I'm moving to the next slide here, Daniel. This is very, very interesting because I'm just thinking if we, here's again a brilliant illustration of
Mm,
how crucial it is if we're talking about the training required. Daniel, even in controlled environment agriculture, if you talk about a controlled ecosystem, there's
mm,
quite a lot of science here that we need to communicate with our young people. There's a lot of maths in here. There's a great
mm,
deal of computational technology. And of course, they are introducing artificial intelligence solutions that are all pointing toward a set of digital skills, not just in
mm,
presenting, but understanding a great deal of this. Is a lot of knowledge that we need to understand. And what you've just shared now in terms of working in the CA space there means that here's a great opportunity for young people to even learn in this particular space, understanding what is controlled environment agriculture. What does Daniel mean by monitoring systems?
mm,
What is a sensor? And what is a sense?
mm,
What kind of data is communicated via a sensor to a
mm,
computer, and how is that data analyzed? And what can I learn from that data? For instance, I'm moving to this next slide where you ask the brilliant question: Why mushroom? Why oyster mushrooms? That's the next slide that you have on there.
mm, mhm. Yes. So, no, thanks for what you've just said, about the technology, the AI, and everything else. There's a group that I am involved with currently, where we're working towards transforming um, the agricultural space
Mm,
um, in a way that we can, because it doesn't mean we've got the solution for everything, but at least what we can do, like as you have mentioned now about AI, that a farmer will be able to know exactly. and even the buyer, because the most important thing as well in farming, it's about traceability, because we're producing something that people are going to consume,
Mm.
and people need to see exactly what happened from the start until before this thing come into their mouth, so and I think those are topics, those are things that really the youth is interested in, to come in and to learn
Yes.
throughout. So yes, and then so why oyster mushrooms? There's so many things that I can really talk
I'm
about
sure.
this specific species of mushrooms. But I've just mentioned some few points there that, the mushroom industry, or the value of the mushroom market, according to that research that I've mentioned there, is valued at $62.92 billion, and then also expected to grow by 7.6% during 2022-2029. So which then it says to me that there is an opportunity here,
Yeah.
because what we can do is that we can tap and have a market share of that market value for this specific mushrooms. And I've also mentioned there that, the oyster mushrooms, what I like about them is that, they are natural decomposers. Look at what is happening now with climate change. Look at what is happening, with our environment. There's quite a lot. Our environment is under distress, and it affects us, whether we like it or not.
Mm.
But now with these mushrooms, they are natural decomposers, because all of these agricultural waste that that are that people just throw away. Those are the waste. I'll just mention, for example, here we plant maize, and at the end of the cycle, you'll find most people burning, those maize stalks. You know, and those are things that, we will take and then repurpose to make to produce, because these mushrooms, you need to feed them,
Mm.
and whatever you feed them must also be something that they are going to thrive in. There, there's a lot of wheat that is being grown. The wheat straw, we'll take and then use as our growing medium. And then there's a lot, that I can talk about that, but I think those are just a few points that I wanted, to raise, to say, why are we really putting much of our time here? And I think the other thing is that, these mushrooms, they contain quite a lot of health benefits,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
they actually will actually replace. I've got a guy who's working at the farm there who does not eat meat,
Mm.
but once he starts eating um, the mushrooms, and anybody else anyway that eat them, they say, but are you sure that there's no meat here? So, and they contain quite a lot of protein. So they will also, replace meat for those people that don't want,
Right.
to eat meat. And then, that's the reason why, we really giving so much time and to teach people about this, because one of the challenges that I always mention about these specific mushrooms is that you hardly find them on the shelves. And for me, I will see it as a problem. But for me, it creates an opportunity of saying, this is an opportunity for us, to go
Absolutely.
and teach people about these mushrooms. And they are not quite difficult to grow.
No. So, Daniel, let me move to
Yeah.
the next slide here, and this one is show with you talk onboarding the youth through art and jazz music in Angola. You talked a little bit about this earlier in the conversation, and we got these incredible pictures on the screen at the moment. Do you want to say something toward that?
Yeah, I think we've talked about this, and I think it's best that, someone sees that event that, was put together after we've sat with this kid, and then, just show them about mushrooms, these oyster mushrooms, and then also how they can get involved, and in fact, even at the specific trip, I even visited our embassy in Angola,
Wow.
and to go and meet with our trade commissioners there, and to tell them that I'm here and this is what I want to do. And they
Hmm.
were actually surprised to say, you come to tell us that you are here and this is what you are here to do, and you are not in any trouble, because most of the people that come to us, they'll come into their country, they'll get into trouble somewhere, and then they'll come into our space. But you are just coming to say you are here. We applaud you for that. So, and they gave me a lot of information to say, whatever that you need, we are here, as the trade commissioners and so on, or they normally call them foreign economic representative in our country here.
Right.
So FER. So, we sat with them and I showed them, this is what I want to do, and I want um, to get your assistance, so that even the processes that I need to follow, because they
Mm.
know exactly what needs to happen. So in the evening, after, during the day, we had these discussions, and then, we went on, and this was now, the closing of that session that we had, which I still need to go back and now to go and implement.
Right. And so the next slide here, Daniel says, our innovative flagship oyster mushroom bread. I'm getting hungry just looking at
Yeah.
it.
Yes. Yes. So, as I was talking about the challenges of seeing these mushrooms on the shelves,
Yes.
I sat down and said, okay, um, let me create our own market, because this is not only for me, as you've seen on one of the other slides, that this is we want to industrialize communities, because you will remember the problem statement that I mentioned and the solution about industrialization. And
Yeah.
now this fits into what that solution to say, okay, we don't see the mushrooms themselves, on the shelves, but we can feed people these mushrooms in a different way, and
Mm.
in a way that they understand, and everybody knows bread, So I came up with this product to say, let's grow the mushrooms, let's try them, and I've tested the product in different, from different markets, even there at Palito.
Yeah.
We had that bread there, even where I remember the head chef had to be called to come and taste the bread. I mean, he almost took the whole loaf, even though we tried to cut it, in smaller pieces for people to taste. So,
Yes.
and what is happening here is that it's not only the mushroom flour that we use, but we use other flours as well. You will know here we've got a lot of cassava.
Mm.
There's banana, there's cocoa, there's coconut flour that we use, in the bread. We still use some kind of wheat flour as well, just to mitigate the gluten. And then you will see there, like I've got different herbs that I'm also using here. So this is a highly nutritional bread,
Incredible.
which one of the guys who tasted the bread, when I gave him, and then he just took one bite, one slice, and then from his first bite, he says, one bite is enough, because I think he also, the aroma that you get out of this bread is quite amazing. And what I want to see happening, Theo and the listeners, is that all these ingredients that we are doing to produce this specific product, we want them to
Right.
be grown in our villages. We want them to be grown in our
Uh,
townships,
That's
through
just.
those controlled environment agriculture.
Mm.
And it's an industry on its own that we're creating, and also to say this is how you can enjoy these mushrooms, in it. And now this is now a market that we're creating and owning, and a market that we're saying this is our market, as this mushroom premieres, throughout the country and elsewhere where we will be launching the product.
Incredible. The next slide, Daniel, is the one which is the impact. And then, of course, you're saying that it's aligned with number 15 of the 17. So I'm just going to skip that and I'm going to go to this
Yeah, we
other.
can.
Yeah. And you have a line here at the end where you talk about, the Africa we want aligned with Africa Agenda 2063 aspirations. Why did you have
Mhm.
that slide up there? And I know you've traveled extensively, and I think was this a visit to the UN offices or?
No, the our embassy in Angola.
Okay, all right.
Yes, yes. So yes, I've as you say, I've traveled, yes, through many African countries,
Mm.
almost 40 of those countries. And we've got this Africa Agenda 2063, and I've mentioned the aspiration number one out of all of them because it talks up. It says, the prosperous Africa based on inclusive growth and sustainable development. So inclusivity is what I mentioned in my problem statement, that
Okay.
we want people to be included and people to be part of this and
Mm.
people to grow and to close that gap that we have seen. Because if inclusivity is talking about um, um, closing the gaps or the inequality. So, like the the saying that say leaving no one behind. We
Right.
want to leave no one behind that wants to be in the program. And that will be capacitated to be here. And also sustainable development, as we are talking about. The 17 SDGs. If I'm saying, when I sat down and looked deeply into this and looked at all the 17 SDGs, and to realize that this project is really aligned to 15 of them, then I said this is massive. And also that is also talking to the $54.57 trillion fungi industry, that you will I will share with you, to see all the industries that are based within the fungi industry. You'll also be shocked to really realize how big the fungi industry is.
Well, and it's important that
Thanks.
there's funding for that because it's got to do with food security. That last slide here that we have, Daniel, is where you say you're open for partnerships and you've got all your details there. And we would really love the listeners and the viewers to take note of this because this is very, very, very helpful. In a
Mm,
way to sort of get in touch with Daniel. And so,
mm.
for those of you who've joined us on the screen, you see Daniel and myself there. Sort of just put ourselves next to each other there on the screen, Daniel. Um, Daniel, this has been
Okay.
very, very insightful and very helpful to get to know. And I think it's good that we have these conversations in order for us to find a way to strengthen each other. And that's really, really meaningful. Um,
Mhm.
and so, thank you, my brother, for coming on the second time in the last 14 days. And I hope our paths can collide
Yeah.
sooner than later. And I don't know
So,
if you had some additional sort of comments for us before we close this evening.
yes, Theo, I just want to share, with you and our listeners that once you put your, you I talk about few things like in terms of the flow, to say you think, you visualize, you research, and you document, and then you start.
Mm,
Those five points.
yeah.
And I just want to say that I give myself a pat on the shoulder without any shame, to
Mm,
say I've done quite a lot of work
mm,
without putting funding in as an obstacle. You just mentioned about funding.
mm,
I did this. I've been working on this for 3 years now without funding from any institution or from anyone, and I just made it happen.
ah, big.
With what I've done, and now it is the time, as I'm talking about partnerships, that funders that are out there that you like to say, because now we are ready to commercialize, and all
Mm,
of these 1,200 people that are on our program, for them to start growing successfully and within this controlled environment agriculture setup, where we rolling out growing rooms that we are preparing now, to roll out to all these communities everywhere else, for them to grow, so that we can be able, to come up with all these products that, I've mentioned. There's quite a number of products, and because we're also creating a franchise model for our business, which we're raising funding for. So, and I would like to thank you, and Sven, and all the partners of Learning Academy Worldwide, for giving us an opportunity for us to discuss about these opportunities. There was a
oh,
time when I was interviewed by the Rising Stars, which is a media house that's talking to students.
Right.
And I outlined all the opportunities that are there for high school students, and even for tertiary students. So I believe it's such platforms, Theo, that really taking our work out there and also to creating some kind of traction for the work that we're doing.
Oh, it's
And I just want to thank you so much,
you're
and
very, very
I would like a
welcome.
lot.
And I know
Thank
how
you.
important that is. So we appreciate it. Thank you for your partnership. Daniel Motshwane was sitting this evening and joining me some 10,500 kilometers from where I am, sitting in Stockholm. Outside at the moment, I think we're at -8 degrees Celsius. Um, it was that's cold. I know you're sitting in the warmth there, Daniel, in the north, and you deserve it. But I hope our time.
Raining, yeah. Now it's
But
raining. Yeah,
yeah,
the whole 2 weeks.
we are very, very thankful to you, Daniel, for sharing these 2 weeks with us
Thank
during those. It was very, very meaningful. And we appreciate those of you who've listened in. We are thankful for those of you who took the time to share some thoughts with us. And we are thankful that we've connected with Zambia. And we never know where that could lead, potentially to a next guest. We never know. So, well, thank you very,
He's one
very
of
much.
our partners in the Moringa industry.
Well, now there you go. So we're looking forward to then maybe have Matthias on. The more we know, the more we can find ways to really, really meaningfully partner with each other. Let's tell each other stories.
So,
Let's get folks to listen up and look up and become encouraged. And let our young people begin to see that we are serious about their lives and what it means for them to have a meaningful life. Doesn't matter where they live. Daniel Motshwane and myself, Theophilus van Rensburg-Lenster, we're signing off for this evening. Thank you so very much for joining us. You take care.
take care. Thank you.